Bring in more revenue while saving money and differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack vying to win those guests by becoming more environmentally friendly. We will show you how easy it is and how cheap it can be, if not free, and share all the opportunities available. So join us each week as we take another step along the green path. That's one more step to differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack. The Green Path podcast is kindly sponsored by Sustonica, the first sustainability certification for vacation rentals that audits homes on their environmentally friendly setup, installs smart measuring tools for water, gas and electricity, and offers an iPad for guests to see their real-time consumption levels. Learn more at sustonica.com. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Green Path podcast. Today, my guest is going to share with us how being green doesn't always mean something to do with your property. Today, we're going to hear from Dennis what Ecologi can do to help us. Hello, Dennis. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Dennis, there are two words that I really love on your website, Ecologi website, and that is simple and impactful. So can you please start off with explaining what does Ecologi do?
Yeah, so those are two of my favorite words too. So I'm happy you like them. So we are a climate action platform. Our mission is to halt climate change, and we quantify that by saying that our aim is to reduce 50% of the global carbon footprint by 2040. Mm-hmm. So that's about 16 gigatons as it stands today, which is a very, very large number. And Ecologi started as a business to consumer subscription for the planet, pretty much. So our one of our co-founders, Elliot, and the CEO, he was looking at a coffee that he was holding in his hand, and he was wondering, like, how much impact can this small purchase actually generate? And the idea became to set up a subscription service where you would automatically make your life a climate positive one. So every month you'd be planting trees and doing carbon offsets to mitigate your carbon footprint. Now, it's important in the climate journey that you work to reduce your impact, right? Like, just carbon offsetting is not enough, but you work to reduce your impact. And that's where, simple and impactful came in. What I noticed when I joined Ecologi, I was concerned about the environment, but I wasn't really doing anything. I'm sorry, I wasn't really doing anything about it. Like most people in the world are, right? Like, concerned, but not really sure where to start. And then I signed up for Ecologi, reached out to Elliot and said, like, hey, this should be a business-to-business product as well. And we spoke about that. And what I realized is, as soon as I started making impact by making my family climate positive, I was sitting in the car and talking to my wife and going, like, hey, do you realize that the exhaust that's coming out of the car at the moment, I'm actually offsetting that and making our journeys and our life climate neutral or climate positive. And that motivated me to do more. And I think when you look at simple, the whole climate problem is an incredibly anxiety-ridden issue, right? It's ambiguous. How much can I, as an individual, do? There's all of these worries around that. And what we try to do is make it as simple as possible. And when I saw that I was making an impact, I was more motivated to do more. And I think, when you feel that you've got some form of power, then you are more empowered to do more, right? So I usually compare taking climate action to training for a marathon without ever getting any feedback, whether you're making progress. Are you going to be able to run the 42 kilometers, or, you don't know, and you're just training and you get no feedback loop. And I think that's where Ecologi started to shine really quickly, because you can see that you're doing something. Your forest is growing, you're making impact. And we've expanded from there. So what we do now is we help businesses create climate positive workforces. So it's essentially offsetting all of your employees. But we also help businesses plant trees and do additional carbon offsets. We're about to launch a product called Ecologi Zero, which helps businesses on their journey to net zero, which is both reducing your impact and offsetting the impact that you can't reduce. And then we also work with businesses that want to do more. Like, the amazing thing with running a business and taking climate action is that your impact goes so much further than just your business. Right, you can influence your customers, you can influence your stakeholders, you can allocate a certain part of your budget to take care of this problem, and go beyond just your own impact. And if you think about realistically, less than 10% of the global population is actually in a good enough space to be able to do something about climate change. Think about third world countries living below the poverty line, or being in jail or whatever, right? Like, there's so many reasons why people can't take climate action, and the ones that do are also likely to be the ones that have the biggest climate impact. So if you're
sorry, you're touching on things that I actually want to ask you about just a little bit later in the interview, but I just wanted to touch on, first of all, on your website, you've got the two audiences. You've got the individual and you have the business. You said it's a subscription model, so everyone pays a subscription. Can you explain, where does that money go? So if I'm trying to ease my conscience and think, okay, I will join Ecologi, where does my money go? How do I feel better about what I'm doing?
That's a great question, because one of the problems with taking climate action when you're investing in climate solutions is that the climate solution market is very complex. It's comparable to investing on the stock market, right? Like, will this stock go up or down? If you invest in a climate solution, will this carbon offsetting project be managed properly and actually achieve its goals, or will these trees actually survive? So we have multiple products, but our subscription product means that you offset about a ton of carbon every month through carbon offsetting projects. This could be renewable energy or cook stove improvements, or like all kinds of different projects around the world, which either stop additional carbon from entering the atmosphere or actively reduce carbon.
And then you look after that. I give you the money and you invest my money into these projects.
Yeah, there's two major anxiety-ridden steps, I think, in climate action. The first one is figuring out how bad am I, individually or as a business, right? Like, how do I calculate what my footprint is? Am I doing it right? There's lots of questions there. And then apart from our subscription business, Ecologi Zero is going to help you make that calculation even easier. But if you look at the climate positive workforce, essentially that subscription says, okay, you have 10 employees, let's make all of them climate positive, right? Like, it's a first step. You can get it rolling in a minute or two, and you're taking action, right? And then the second difficult step is the step where you have to choose what to invest in. And one of the things that makes us unique is that we don't really give you a smorgasbord of options. Like, do you want to do this project or that project? And this project is priced at this, and that project is priced at that. We have a department that's constantly working on finding the best projects, etc. So we just offer you a fixed price per ton of carbon offset and a fixed price per tree. So a lot of customers in the tourism industry, for example, they say, okay, we want to plant a tree for every customer, or we want to automatically offset the journey of the customer, or we want to do a combination of those things. So beyond the climate positive workforce subscription, you can decide to make ad hoc purchases for now it's season, and now I decide to plant 100 trees or decide to do 100 tons of carbon offsets. Or you could even go as far as using our APIs, and that means that you can integrate it into your actual checkout process, and everything is automatic. And you could just say, okay, hey, if you're a customer at my lodging, then this is what we'll do, and you can send them on the Ecologi profile page that you get as a customer. You can actually send the customers to the trees that you planted in their name. So you could say, like, here are the trees.
So you're saying that with the API at my checkout, I can say, add this $5 and I'll plant 5 trees for you, and then it's shown on the profile. I did want to, so that's correct, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Excellent. Now, I did want to touch on this profile page, because I think that's a lovely idea where it shows that you are actually proactive in doing what you're saying you're doing. And I think it's great for guests to see that you are being proactive. It's a great thing to share. And if you're saying that, for example, they can chip in $5 and they get 5 trees, and they can see their 5 trees as part of your profile, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And I would say that having that profile page also helps you bring the story to life.
Yeah.
And that is an additional power you have as an entrepreneur, is like people need to see that there's options that are better choices. If I choose this lodging, there will be climate action and I can actually follow it. And if I this the lodging, then nothing will happen and I'll just have a great holiday, right? So there's a lot of benefit in closing that loop, and I think that is one of the areas that's usually overlooked. It's bringing people into the story, because when you plant trees, you do so much more than just planting trees. Like you help local communities create employment. So you help kids go to school, because all of a sudden there's money in the family and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that looping that story to the close and showing people what's actually happening. It also encourages people to, because if they want, they can add trees to your forest as well. So we see this with engaged audiences, that they have their own profile, they add their own trees, but then all of a sudden one of their customers goes to that profile and says, oh, I want to plant 25 trees as well. So a tree is 24p. Don't pin me down on that. It might be 22. I'm sorry, I should have looked that up. But
P as in pence.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cheap. We should be planting entire forests.
Yeah, we should. Like we just broke through the 51 million tree mark with Ecologi, so that's really exciting.
Yeah, that is amazing. Yeah. So that profile page, I think it's great because we talk about how do we share what we're doing with our guests, like on our website. How can we share what we're doing? And I think that's a great way, especially if it's interactive almost, so they can contribute as well. That is really great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there's the individual and then there's the business. So for example, if I have, just in terms of the vacation rental industry, if I have a property and I want to have that property as the business rather than my business with the staff, et cetera, I want that property to be represented so that people who stay at this property know that this property is contributing on their behalf. Can a property be a business on your website?
Yeah, absolutely. You can create a profile page for each property, and you can tell the story there. Absolutely.
Okay. And so then as a business, let's chat about, as a business, how does that profile work? You mentioned staff. How does it all work? How does everyone contribute? How does everyone benefit?
Yeah, so it would just be ecologi.com/whatever profile name you choose.
Yeah.
And that is a visual representation of your forest and your impact. So you imagine a web page where you just see tiles full of trees that are growing up over time.
Yeah.
You also see tiles of the carbon offsetting projects you do. So if it's a wind project, then you'll see the little windmills and stuff like that.
Right.
And that is the central point of communication. So if you click on any of these tiles, you can dig deeper and get the details of the project, or where the trees have been planting, what number they are on the blockchain, and that kind of stuff.
Oh, blockchain. Wait a second.
Yeah, it's a count method. It's not a very fancy one. It's just we need to have a register on how many trees are added.
Yeah, not a problem. So then, so I understand. So there's the individual entity and there's the business entity, and it's obviously a different price per month in the subscription, but it's the same sort of format.
Yeah, and the price for the individual trees and the individual carbon offsets is the same for everybody. Yeah. So one of the key things that we do is we only take 15% commission. So we're in it to halt climate change. We're not in it to buy bigger cars or anything like that. So 15% of the impact purchases that you make go to us to cover our overhead, and the remaining 85% go all to climate action. And I think that's quite unique because we're also very transparent in how we do that. So we have this public ledger where you can track everything. Right? You can see how many trees we've bought, what carbon offsets we bought, what's happening financially. You can even see our board meeting minutes and our financial statements on there in order to see, because in the end, you're making an investment decision in projects, and transparency is essential there. So we're incredibly transparent when it comes to this stuff.
Just a question. Some listeners might say, yeah, but why are we planting trees? It's going to take a long time for them to grow. What answer do you have for that kind of question or statement?
Well, first of all, trees take a long time to grow, and it's important to know that you can't say that you're carbon offsetting something when you're planting trees. because it takes time for this tree to start sequestering carbon. And if you're carbon offsetting, you're actually mitigating the carbon right now. So that's why you need a carbon offsetting project. But yeah, trees take a while to grow. And why are we planting them? Well, sadly, trees are still being deforested much faster than they're being re-added. So we cannot have enough trees. We just need to keep on planting them. I also would say that trees are a great way to communicate impact, because everybody understands trees, everybody knows that they're good for the planet. So you don't have, like, if you use a carbon offsetting project, it's much more complex to explain. Okay, we selected this energy project here because it wouldn't have been built without support from climate activists, etc., etc. So trees are just, it's a fantastic way to show that you're committed, and it's also easy to track. There's so many benefits to it.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is going to be my ignorant question. I was just curious. The projects that you hear about when it comes to this sort of thing, they're in Peru, Tanzania, Kenya, Bolivia. Why are all these projects happening in these sorts of countries and not in, big cities, big countries? Do we not have the room for wind farms? Do we not have, the infrastructure to convert the landfill to gas? Things that are happening over there, how come we're not doing them?
So we are doing that, and Ecologi also plants trees in the UK and in the US and Australia. It's not my forte, the purchasing side of this, but essentially, if you want to sell carbon credits, in other words, you're building an energy solution, or you're doing something else and you want to sell the carbon credits around that, you need to prove that this project cannot exist without the funding of these carbon credits. So if you look at Western countries, like a wind farm in Sweden or in Denmark, it will exist without support from another country or individual. But if you look at more developing countries, you need this additional revenue stream. So that's one of the many considerations. I would also say that the countries that are most hit, if you look at Madagascar, for example, in Madagascar, deforestation of the mangroves has been enormous. So reforest, and when they got deforested, it brought like real climate change victims with them, because as the mangroves disappeared, the local livelihoods started to disappear. These people are living in abject poverty, and etc. So by replanting there, you're also helping revive local communities. If you plant trees in the UK, fantastic, but they're that's purely the tree action. In developing countries, you do so much more.
Yes, lovely point. I also wanted to touch on the fact that I love the glossary page on your website. So you have mentioned a few things, and I thought, no, I'll just direct the listeners to the ecology glossary page. I'll put the link in the description because there's a lot on that page, and it's a very, very interesting page to go through. That's a good lesson right there on that page.
Yeah, it's also one of my, if you think about simple and impactful, one of the challenges is that because climate change is such a complex problem, there is a lot of terminology, a lot of legalese. There's so much around it that's actually decreasing adoption in many cases, in my opinion. So yeah, the simpler we can keep it, the better. But if you're interested in the terms, absolutely dive deep. It's a never-ending subject, it feels like, and yeah, the glossary page is a great place to start.
It's a growing language.
Yes.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, as a property manager or as an individual and I want to actually have an impact, I can just pay you a monthly subscription fee. You take my money, you fund projects, and you buy trees, you buy trees. So then I can have an impact by just handing over some money, and you look after the rest with complete transparency.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And the hope is that, so in my 3.5, 4 years at Ecologi, I've seen that if that's your first real step into taking climate action, it's because the profile page constantly updates, and you get these updates of the projects that you support, etc. it's a great way to start doing more.
Well, on this podcast so far, we're talking about, solar panels and EV charging points and no single-use plastic. And it's everything that seems to be at the property and what we can do to our property. But
Yep.
this is a much, much bigger picture. And it's something that we can be part of for little effort. And it's great that it can be incorporated into a checkout. The guests can participate as well. They can see where their money's going. I think that's a really, really great thing that we can provide. Yeah, and that you provide and that we can provide to our guests, because it's great to include them in the story, as you said. It's a great story.
Yeah, we're looking at the knock-on effects that our customers have, right? So somebody signs up, somebody else sees the profile and signs up. That's a knock-on effect on the profile that you've created, right? And you can clearly see that businesses that engage their customers with the profile page have more customers sign up. Now, this is not public facing yet, but it's really empowering to see that if you have guests and if you're a boutique and you've got recurring guests, etc., and you have this conversation about why you started doing this, you'll see a lot of them start taking that action as well. And that's again the additional impact that you have as an entrepreneur to inspire people to make that change. And it's only a small step, but it's the first step, and we need a lot of these first steps.
Yeah. Well, I am hearing from property managers that when they start along the path to becoming more environmentally friendly with their property, it is like Bob Garner mentioned, it's like eating a bag of crisps. You start with one, but you just can't stop. I love the fact that with the profile page where the guests can see it, it's like the guests are going to start eating from those chips too and will want to buy their own bag, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's lovely. Look, I think we're going to wind up now, but is there anything more that we haven't touched on about ecology that we should know about?
Well, I think we managed to cover the essence. I think one subject that maybe we should highlight is greenwashing.
Yes.
So the term greenwashing, I always explain it just as disingenuous marketing. If you're a heavily polluting company and you decide to plant some trees and then say, we're planting trees, now we're good for the planet. That's a typical form of greenwashing, right? So I just want to make sure that when you start communicating that you're taking climate action, and the only thing you do is sign up for Ecologi, but you still use single-use plastics and you brown energy, etc., then you're gonna be put on the spot, because the people that choose green properties have a green mindset, and they're gonna look at you and ask you, have you actually done what you're saying you're doing? So I would definitely recommend that Ecologi is a part of the solution, but not the total solution. So show that you're reducing and use that story. So if you've got a climate positive workforce, every month you'll be supporting 2 new carbon offsetting projects. So every month you'll have content to communicate with your stakeholders. This is thank you for being a customer or for having booked or whatever. This is what we're doing right now. And then expand that story with the other things that you're doing and make it a part of the conversation. Because switching to solar, for example, is such a logical decision, especially today with the energy crisis, etc. You could tell that story about, okay, how did we go through this selection? What did we learn? And that kind of stuff, because that will help your customers as well to make that step if they choose to.
I hadn't actually thought about doing blog posts. If I was going along the green path, sharing my progress along the green path in a newsletter, not specifically for every guest, but obviously those niche guests would want to know, or they'd be happy to hear about it. I think if you're sharing what projects you're working on, that's a great piece of content to be sharing. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And that content is valuable because it helps you rank better, and it has all kinds of marketing impact as well. You just got to make sure that what you share is genuine, because I would say that people with a green mindset are very allergic to disingenuous communication.
Well, look, so far along the green path, we've been talking about the single-use plastics and the insulation and So we're at that point in the path now where if you've got your property lined up like this, the next step is to be on Ecologi, because then everyone can see all the steps you're taking. It's not like you are just paying money and still using the little shower gels in the bathroom.
Exactly. And an additional effect of that is there's an organization called the Million Tree Pledge, which is a group of entrepreneurs. I'm one of the founders. And the pledge is just that you're going to plant 1 million trees with your business over a set period of time that you set yourself, right? So it could be 10 years, 5 years, could be 20 years, but you make the Million Tree Pledge. And collectively, I think 48 million trees have been pledged, 8 million trees have been planted. So if you decide to make tree planting a part of your offer, I would definitely consider reaching out to the Million Tree Pledge and taking the pledge yourself, because that's another story that you're telling.
Yeah.
And, eventually you'll be able to sit at the bar and to say, I'm a tree millionaire, right? Like that's a great story.
That's fantastic. Wow. Well, I'll grab that link and I'll put it in the description as well, description below.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Dennis, it's been a pleasure learning about ecology and chatting with you. It's been really great.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode and were at least a little bit inspired. If you'd like to catch up on the other episodes that you've missed, just head to thegreenpathpodcast.com. See you next time.